Cincinnati, we gon' rise in the jungle, we unite in tripping orange and black and white. All day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Now who got 'em, who rockin' on? Now who wanna move, crossing on? Now who wanna move out on? If you got stripes, then you let the city know you rock 'em. Yeah, we got 'em, yeah, we fought 'em. Like that black and orange up on 'em. Single bottle, never stop it. To the beast and on 'em. Who they rockin' with the diamond stripes? Flossing on the ring. Cincinnati, she's our queen. We gon' show the world who king. Orange in the day, black in the night. Stripes in our
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to an episode of Bengals and Brews. I am the co-host. I am the man in the chair today, the Orange Arrow, a.k.a. Beer Can Titty Guy, a.k.a. Derek Davis, whatever you want to call me. I'm joined by, Cincinnati Bengals Talk's own, the only guy that matters in Cincinnati Bengals Talk, correct? Andrew Foxmiller. Andrew, what's going on, man?
How you doing, man? No, I'm glad to be here. We've interacted in much different circumstances, that being drinking before a game, but now we're drinking in the off season, and I love it.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, we're all about drinking over here, so we enjoy. I've got a nice ice cold Miller Lite. I saw you sipping on some bourbon over there. What are you sipping on?
At the moment, right at the moment, I'm sipping on a Weller Antique in my Rivertown Inquiry rocks glass. So
nice. Yeah, so we're going to be talking a little bit of free agency talk today. I know you guys have dabbled in it a little bit over at your on your page. So just go ahead and let me know who we signing. We'll just make this a short podcast.
Yeah, right. I mean, honestly, it almost feels like it could be a short. Like it could be short. It could be very uneventful. I almost expect it to be pretty uneventful. I don't know about you all, but look, if you think about it, remember how like disappointed free agency would be
yep.
for so long.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I sit back and I go, have the last 2 years really been great? I know they have, but you kind of sit there and doubt yourself because you're like, I'm just not used to them having a team that's a contender to where they can just kind of continue. They've been doing the same strategy this whole time. I feel like it's just now the team is where it's at. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep. Yeah. And I kind of had the same general feeling. Like they're not going to go out there and sign the top right tackle. They're not going to go out there and sign, what's the defensive tackle, Hargraves. I don't feel like they're going to go out there and sign these big names. They're just going to plug a few holes like they have been. This year, it might only be one player. It might not be any. It might just be all of our guys that we need that they want to bring back, and that'll be the extent of the free agency.
I think if you look at that, the first week or so, we'll start seeing news rolling out that they've, extended this player. They've managed to work out a deal with all their existing people. Mm-hmm. We've seen this before, right? But this time around, if I were to say anything about I don't even want to call it a splash, like just really what needs to be done, I would love to see right tackle address at some level in free agency. Would love that. If they could do that, I think at this point, we as fans, if you look again, the last couple of years, I feel like you used to be outrage, right? Like we wanted the big splashy moves because it was a team that needed that to be done. Now, between the fact that we're all like, hey, you guys kind of know what you're doing, right? I mean, we're good with it. If you could just do just a little bit of reinforcement, maintain your people, and obviously we're going to lose some. We know that.
Right.
I'm okay with it. And that's a really boring thing to say, I feel like, but look at where we are. Look at us,
Exactly. Yep. Like what was that show that they did the look at us thing? But yeah, just sign a right tackle, Caleb McGarry, Jawan Taylor. Like if they can sign somebody like that for a decent amount of money, then you're literally going into the draft with every need, every position taken care of.
Pretty much. I mean, you could argue that, all right, what did they do about tight end? I mean, there's things that we need answered based off what they
Well,
do with Hurst, but
yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, like, I feel like positionally, like, it's, to me, that's just such a big key, because you can imagine so many scenarios from a draft perspective, from a depth perspective. The idea of, I was so afraid of our cornerback situation heading into last season. I just kind of saw this scenario where, man, if one of these key guys drops, like, what do we do? And that's knowing Eli Apple can step in when needed and so on and so forth. But like, I can't see him making a run if something happens to Uche. And then look, we almost did. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's pretty incredible. So I say that because I feel like I should be nervous about cornerback again. I love that Cam Taylor-Britt came on the way he did. I think we'll be okay there. I would love to see some depth in the draft. Great. But yeah, position, I think it's like tight end is that one that it depends on which path they take. And then I'll know but if it all comes down to right tackle and you got that at least squared away, you got a veteran, you got it doesn't even have to be a big splash. It doesn't have to be big money, big contract. If you just lock that in, and then whether or not you keep Collins, okay. Whether or not you draft one, okay. You could draft anything in that first round, and if you've got that right tackle answered for heading into the draft, I feel good no matter what you do.
Yeah, and speaking of Eli Apple, that's one that's kind of, I want to ask you about, because when you look at just his play, do you feel like the other 32 teams or 31 teams in the NFL kind of feel like the fans do that hate Eli Apple here? Not the ones that love him like me, but do they see Eli as burnt toast, like all these, even though he isn't? Like, when I watch Eli, I think he can be a top 15 cornerback in Lou Anarumo's system.
Yeah. But the question is, does Eli Apple see himself that way?
Well, yeah, that's true. But do you think that other teams, like, because he's one of those guys that I thought that we would be able to go out, wait a couple weeks, like you said, and then say, hey, if you want to come back, and then you've got that backup corner position taken care of. Because I really do like Eli as that backup corner.
I think it all comes down to what's in Eli Apple's headspace with all of this. I can tell you, this time last year, I was sitting right here in this room, was having a conversation with James Rapine, those that don't know the name. And I made a comment. We were talking about whether or not Eli Apple would stay on the team, because we didn't expect him to have the year that he did, and thank God he did. And I was sitting here, James right next to me. I'm like, he goes, do you think he's kind of putting me on the spot on camera? He said, do you think Eli Apple is going to get, a big contract? He's going to leave for money. Is he going to get a big offer from another team? He would just want to see what I was going to say. He had his answer, of course. And I said, I think Eli Apple, in his mind, I said this last offseason, I think Eli Apple in his mind wants starting cornerback money and a starting cornerback contract. And then, of course, James just starts busting up laughing. And I was like, you're laughing, but I'm telling you, that's what Eli Apple wants.
Yeah.
And
where his headspace is at. And
I would have bet anything. And maybe it's just, I'm also a fan of Eli Apple's, particularly from a social media standpoint, more so maybe. But
there's sometimes when you wish he would just, turn it back just a hair. But
this past season for sure. Last season was all fun and games. It felt like we're all just having a good time. He's out there he's out there chirping at Ben Baby and down the hallway, and it was so great. But I had the impression of Eli Apple that he's going to get a big head about it, right? It just he had that vibe about him, just the way he conducts himself on social media. I thought he's not going to sit here and respect the fact that he's on this great defense. He's got a great defensive coordinator. I just don't. Okay, fine. But it sounds to me like, from everything I've read and everything I've talked about with others, it's he shopped it around, and then he didn't get, I guess, what he wanted, to the point where I don't know that he settled, but he did another year. And look what happened again. I don't think he's going to be certainly not going to be promised. I don't think any expectation is going to be put in front of him that he'll be a starter if he remains on this roster. That could be the biggest sticking point with him. I don't know. I'd love to have him as a third corner. I would love it.
Yeah, I see in the same way. Every time he's came in here, he's he's been in that position though, where he wasn't projected to be the starter. I mean, you had Trey Waynes was projected to be the starter his first year,
Yeah.
and just because of injury luck, and then this year with Cheeto, he was supposed to be, I guess going into the season he was supposed to be the starter, but the projection was that CTB was going to take over that role eventually. But going into, we do have some questions over here.
Okay.
Christopher Crowley in the chat wanting to know about, do we need to push it over the top by signing a big right tackle to fix that problem once and for all? And then of course Crypt Keeper over here, he's one over here that we enjoy. He's saying, have you ever heard of Great American Hero Casper Dick? That's what they call me because of I'm wearing these glasses so it doesn't look as pasty white as it normally does, but I need to get a softer light, that's for sure.
You're saying those are like blue blockers? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, these are blue light glasses.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. I never tried them.
Yeah, they've stopped headaches for sure. But and then they're wanting to know if we're going to do the whole double dip thing. And I guess James did say he thinks that they're going to double dip at tight end in the draft.
If they don't have Hurst, I assume. I don't know exactly what he said, but
yeah, I think that's what he was saying on Locked On. But
okay.
I could see them picking or re-signing Hurst, drafting a tight end in the mid to late rounds, and then maybe picking up another guy, UFA and stuff like that. So I could see them getting 3 guys this year.
I'd be fine with that. I would love even if you drafted 2. I feel like maybe I remember James floating this scenario, but I feel like if you draft 2, I don't know how I feel about no other moves at tight end in free agency in that scenario. It just like Drew Sample, like I feel like that could be a problem heading into, especially if you get into camp and who knows, right? I would love a veteran, and when I say veteran in the world of Cincinnati Bengals these days, it's probably going to be like a 29-year-old or something like that. But I'd love a veteran to have some sort of locker room leadership at the position and be able to, and I'm nothing against Drew Sample. I'm sure he's got that ability as well, but somebody that's going to be able to actually what they want their tight end to do beyond what Sample's going to do, be able to kind of show them what's the gap though? You know, what's Hayden Hurst going to get versus somebody that I'm describing right now? I mean, I know there's a range, but that's it's tricky, right? I'd love to have Hurst another year.
Yeah, I would love. I've been on the camp that I think that they re-sign Hurst just because everybody is looking at the tight end situation, and you know the tag or the price tag that CJ got, the price tag that all these guys got last year, and thinking that it's going to be the same this year. But I think because of the amount of solid tight ends in the draft this year, I don't think that they're going to necessarily go for that much. What do you think?
I don't know. So you're talking about like are you describing a scenario where it might work in their favor, like saturation at the position? Yes.
Like say Hayden's wanting, I don't know, 8 to 10 mil a year.
Right.
Just putting that scenario out there. But because of the amount of good tight ends coming in the draft, the amount of good tight ends in free agency, he might only be able to get 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Just hypothetically speaking, that cash wise, I don't know what the value is right now at tight end, but
I'd take it in that scenario for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I did see somewhere. Yeah, I did see somewhere where I think it might have been Dallas's tight end. They said something about wanting to keep him for about 15.
Schultz.
I can't. Yeah, Schultz. I can't remember. It was 15 for. Might have been 15 for 1 year though, and I'm like, shoo.
I mean, it's Dallas. It's currency exchange. I don't know how it all works.
Exactly. I love it.
I think Hayden Hurst has kind of got the. Yeah, I get the impression that he's not opposed to the idea of like a local tax, right? Like I think he's considered the idea. Like I think he likes the situation. He's always seemed, completely grateful for the environment that he's in, the team that he's a part of, the offense that he's a part of, the quarterback that he has, the coaches that he has. So I want, obviously, Hayden Hurst to do whatever's best for him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's willing to be a little flexible. I don't know how flexible the Bengals will be. But yeah, I'd love to see him back. I don't see it being a long-term thing. Maybe another 1 year, possibly 2 or 3. I don't know. But if they draft 2 tight ends, for sure, a 1 year deal. And I don't know if he'd do it. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's more what he's looking for, is the security of the 3-4 year contract. And I think he would probably take less money for a longer contract than he would, because of that stability. Yeah.
I think I could see where was a scenario where it might work in their favor, especially short term, those first couple of years. It's very possible. Is it priority? I feel like it should be from a positional standpoint, but as far as locking in, I'm assuming really, priority 1 is, all right, let's figure out Burrow. All right, let's figure out Von Bell, assuming Jesse Bates is leaving as well. And then somewhere in there, Hurst is probably that next. We got to figure out what we're doing about him. As far as if we want to try to make him an offer and keep him around.
So I said this to the boys yesterday, or not yesterday, but last week when we was talking. If I had to set the over under at like 5.5 Bengals players re-signed, what would you go over that or under?
So talking about how many total do we have now? If you factor in every
let me.
How far down the line are we going here?
There's Spotrac. So I'm talking all of them, to every one of them. I mean, from your Brandon Allen's, like the
P. Ryan
guys, yeah.
5.5.
Yep. If I was to set it at 5.5, there's
gonna be some dead air. Well, I think here. I'm just saying.
We have, yeah. I'm looking it up right now, and we currently have. Looks like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, about 20, 25, and somewhere in around there, players that need to be re-signed, including like the restricted free agents and all that stuff.
Yeah, 5.5 is an interesting number. I'm gonna go over. I mean, because if you think about it, there's going to be a guarantee that a safety's staying. Let's assume Von Bell. I think. And I think P. Ryan is almost a guarantee in my opinion. He's like the perfect anything for them as far as how they can structure his deal, and he can provide what they value out of him. I think he's not going anywhere. Couple in like your Hurst, your Pratt, let's say give that 1 between the 2 of them, possibly. I know we're kind of, and if you're watching Instagram, I think there might officially, unofficially already be a deal signed with Pratt. Really? Oh, you're talking about him posting his all cryptic stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to, but we know how the NFL works.
Yeah. No, it was skillfully cryptic. You could easily back out and be like, "What are you talking about?" Like it was telegraphing that to my family.
Yeah, the picture of the money and just holding the money up and everything else. I love it. But he is about to get the bag, so I mean, with if we was to set it at 5, I'm thinking probably 6 or 7 of those guys we bring back, because a lot of those guys are guys that they just picked up for a year just to fill some roster spots. But
and then it's like, where do you draw the line too? Because you know how it goes. Like they'll start re-signing some of those people. They'll wait, and they'll kind of delay figuring out what they're going to do at certain things, whether it's after the draft or once they kind of let the dust settle with free agency in general, they might go in and go, all right, now we're going to bring this guy in from special teams that did a good, that sort of thing.
So we've got some questions over here.
What's it like working with James Rapine? I was waiting for that one, and it's not here yet. I'm surprised. That's my own wife asks me that almost daily.
That is a great question, because if there's somebody that loves James Rapine, it's Mr. Rapine himself. So, but we do we do love. I love watching all the shows that you guys do together. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
what is it? What is it like working with James?
Oh man. So I don't know where to begin. So I mean, technically, I worked with James prior to his time doing any sort of sports journalism at any professional level. So that's kind of where we knew each other. So it's probably been it's been over a decade, and oddly enough, he ended up he was dating my cousin at the time, my younger cousin, and now they're married. So there's the connection there as well. But yeah, so yeah, he was basically working a hourly job at an insurance agency that I happened to be working at, and that's kind of how we knew each other. So fast forward to today, we've always stayed in touch, and I was kind of dabbling in the world of YouTube during the peak of the quarantine era of 2020, and just became obsessed. Right, I was doing my own thing. I still kind of have my own little channel on the side as just a fun little hobby, but I kept saying he wanted me to write for all Bengals. I used to write for Cincy Jungle, and then I did SB Nation Fantasy for a while, about 7 or 8 years ago. And he wanted me to write. He was standing up all Bengals. I was like, man, I'm so busy with video. Like, why don't you give me some video stuff? I'll mess around with that for a little bit. I don't know. I want to get back into writing. And time went by, and ultimately I said, dude, you're putting videos up. We got this YouTube channel sitting here. Nobody's watching. And I was like, just give me the same video. I'll just throw it up there and I'll show you how this works. So yeah, early 2020, I threw up I just copied the same thing he was putting on all Bengals and put it up and so let's rename this. It's your own personal YouTube channel. Let's rebrand it. I think he had like 100 something or 200 subscribers from the last, 10 years or something. I said, let's do this. And then all of a sudden it just took off. And then I was just going to demonstrate for like a month, a little trial run to show him how easy it could, like I could show him like how to brand, and then of course he was just busy with everything else as he is. And basically was like, hey, this is both yours and mine. So let's get to work. I'm like, oh boy. And that was it, man. It's Sundays. It's tough. I don't want to sit here and complain because there's plenty of like beat writers and all those people are out there doing the news conferences. I see them grinding away, but when it's your not main job as it is mine.
Oh yeah.
Same
here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like Sundays, especially the Sunday night games. Oh man, like it would be, if you ever go to Cincinnati Bengals, you see how many news conferences like we'll pump out or locker room interviews. I mean, we'll have sometimes like close to a dozen videos, and sometimes we don't start those until 11:30 at night. And I'm getting up for work the next day. There were some 2 a.m., 3 a.m. nights that were just he and I just for a year and a half, whatever it was, until Joe kind of did his Tuesday thing and Elise joined. So.
Yeah, and you guys have started to build, if you need a funny show, wink, wink, we do know some people that might want to hop in there with you guys, but I don't know if we're for all audiences or not.
I'll be honest, as far as like doing the lives, I wish we did more of them. And James knows this. I bug him all the time. I can like because people and I know you guys we've talked about it, and I know like Ice will talk to me about stuff like, oh, can I get James on here? Dude, I can't get him on his own show half the time. I'm trying, like I can't do a live with him. And I tell him, he knows we do a live. I swear it's maybe twice a year, and it's tough though. I mean, like if I could do 11 a.m. with them or something, maybe be a different story. But nights and stuff are tough for him, especially now that he's got the baby. But yeah, I'd love to do more lives. They're fun, especially he and I we bullshit so much over the phone, and none of that's ever captured. And I feel like that kind of carries into some of the lives that we do.
That's kind of where we started this whole show. Is Dale and I were just chatting on the phone, and we're like, why don't we record this stuff? Because we're talking about Bengals and we're joking around and kind of doing what we do now, and it's just like now there's just thousands of other people that enjoy watching it too, but obviously only 23 watching right now. But that's just because I'm only on here. It's because if Diesel was on here, then we might have a few more.
Sports is not a bad it's not a bad category to run with in the world of YouTube. I started out with nothing, and there was no recognizable team or anything I was working with. I didn't start doing sports. I started on my own, just doing like movie and TV, and it was the same mentality. A guy that I was working with, he's like super nerd, like like a little bit older than me, saw Star Wars in theaters, that sort of person, and where he's very good knowledge of like those kind of things, the minutia of like story and film. And I'm more of like the color guy, like commentary, and I can kind of see, oh, isn't that interesting type. So that was like, hey, we would have those conversations in the office. As soon as we all got sent home, I was like, we're just doing this over WebEx. Let's just throw it up there. And then yeah, and I just obsessively, we didn't do lives, but it was slow. I mean, it was a year. It was months, I think, before we even had over 100 views. And we only broke out from one video, and it was a video essay that I did. It's still chugging away right now. I still get residual. It's crazy. I did one video essay on Ted Lasso, and that thing is creeping up on 1 million views.
Like,
all of a sudden.
That's
it just
impressive.
popped.
Yeah.
But it took like 2 years for that to happen. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know what it is, how YouTube and all the like the algorithms and stuff, but we had one show, and it was just a random ass show Dale was on there and Ace Boogie, and they were just talking free agency and kind of right around this time of year, and all of a sudden it got over like 2,000 views, or maybe 1,000. I can't remember how many now, but it was just like, how does all this work? But yeah, it was still pretty neat. But we got one guy in here saying, Trey Flowers, Eli Apple, Von Bell, Clay Johnson, Trent Taylor, Michael Thomas would put us over at 5.5. I was kind of talking more along the lines of like that first week or the 2 weeks, like in around that general area, like the first wave of free agency, if I had to put it at 5.5. And, he even said, like, we've already signed 3, which I understand that, but I'm talking like from when free agency starts to when it ends. Do you think that we will sign 5 to 5.5 or to 6 Bengals players
of our
because
own,
I know, of our own, because I know that's, and I think it was even I can't remember who said it, but they said that like right now we're in that portion of we're going to focus on our own guys, and it might have even been Zach Taylor, but I can't remember now.
I think that's, and I think it was either, it might have been Taylor. It might have been was it at the combine?
Yes,
Taylor, Tobin might have even said something. I'm sure Callahan said something. I think that was a big takeaway from the combine, which was that, like, hey, this is, if you had any assumption that this is what they're going to do, this is all but confirmed based off of collective, input from these coaches. And look, that shouldn't be a surprise either to those out there that maybe, and there may not be, it might be a minority now. James has more videos of him dancing. Puff that,
we love that, man.
I'm not gonna lie, he's sent me, like, just for me, he's just sent videos of him reacting to something or just like celebratory dancing to something. Like, that's just what he does. I have voicemails I've saved when we hit certain milestones with our channel of him just like going nuts and leaving me a message about it. So
I love that. We did a pretty interesting milestone. We're getting dangerously close, and honestly, I think we might have already hit it. Who knows? To our year marker, because we started right around free agency and right around the draft time. We started Bengals and Brews. So
I'll inform you right now. It's
there you go.
What year? Okay, well, I guess I don't know when your first video was.
We started Bengals and Brews. So I started the Orange Arrow Fantasy Show like a couple years ago, and it bombed, so I stopped doing it. And then we started Bengals and Brews about right around this time.
Okay. So then, you'd have to go back and look. By the way, I'm looking here at this is like not going to be great audio or very entertaining of me as I happen to look at your about on your channel. YouTube's messing with us, man. They changed that whole live thing with the tabs and everything. You need to create a playlist and put Bengals and Brews and put that right on your homepage. I go to your homepage and it's older videos because they mess with us. They changed the whole format.
Yeah, I've seen
it used to work.
I've seen that. Yeah. And like you have to go to live to see the most recent update and stuff like that.
Yeah, the workaround has been that I've been doing live, but then I'll add it to a just Cincinnati Bengals talk, like a playlist, and then have that playlist be my top banner, because that's it. I don't know why YouTube's doing that, but
yeah, we love you, so don't.
I can't. My family loves it,
Yeah, exactly. So we do have a couple more questions over here.
Let's go.
Somebody saying I saw Star Wars at the movie theater.
You can
And
run the
my-
replay.
Hey.
You can run the replay on that. I'm pretty sure what I said was he's a super nerd, and he is. He's also a little bit older than me. Like for instance, he saw Star Wars in theaters.
Mhm. There you
I think
go.
I was born the year Return of the Jedi came out, so I'm up there, but I'm not that. That was all. It was just a little flourish of my choice of words there. But
but yeah, guys, if you have any questions in the chat, feel free to post them. But that was one thing when you were talking about you and James doing lives and stuff. One of my favorite shows is when you guys, because you'll have like 200, 300 people watching and just asking questions, and he's just flying through.
And I got to move him along.
Yeah. Those are one of my favorite ones.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I have fun with them, and I also like that. You got to realize, imagine for all of you listening, watching, whatever, imagine a scenario where, especially in the year 2021, let's go year 2021, still a little shaky out there in the world. Imagine a scenario where like you just set up an area in your basement and you've got James, anybody, but in my case, James, just sending you videos of them talking to a camera, and you're constantly, all you're doing is hearing that voice, and then they're staring back at you on a screen, sometimes multiple times a day. So there is nothing more exhilarating than to be able to just get on camera once in a while and get away from, and then I can control, like, instead of me just being like, okay, I hear you, James, I hear. Now I'm like, look, move along. I could like direct the situation more. And yeah, so I love those because yeah, he'll get a question, and sometimes he'll spend like 5 minutes answering. I'm like, dude, we've got a lot of questions. Like, let's go. And
yeah, they're great. So that was a question that I had, since nobody's popping in the chat. Was when you're talking about doing or catching who does what and stuff like that. So the bottle of bourbon, what bourbon did you end up getting, or did you guys settle that or not?
We haven't. Yeah, it's a good question. I've brought that up actually. We haven't because, and I've been around them since then. It just we talked about it a little bit. I need to get a scenario where what I want is I want to film it, and I want
there you go.
But I'm thinking of going to like a bigger place where it's not weird that I'm filming it. You know what I mean? Like the guys down at the liquor store by my house, they're cool with me and all, but I still think it'd be a little unnerving if I'm walking in there and like miking myself or something. But but I feel like if I went to a party source where it's like almost like walking through a mall, like it's not gonna be as weird. And then I want to just do a complete, like I want to sit there and just waste his time, and then end up just getting something that like I could have gotten anywhere else. Like I'm like, cool, I'm gonna get this handle of Evan Williams. Like in the end, I'm gonna ask the people all the questions about it and where it was made, and like if there's enough limestone, if it's made in another state, and that kind of thing. And yeah, I want to film it, so it might take a bit, but I would love to do it this off season.
There you go. You guys, hey, you could do a Cincinnati Bengals talk bourbon trail, and you guys literally just go on the bourbon trail and you figure out which one's your favorite.
I would totally do that. I would, and then, but do lives where you just answer. He can answer his questions about the Bengals, and then I'll just be like sampling. Yeah,
exactly.
By the time the live's over, like he's still just boom, 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 answer his question, Built Bar, whatever. Like, and then I'm just gonna be passed out.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, I love it. So, W. Lewis over here, do you think the change in the locker room, where it has more of a family unit feel, is why more free agents will want to come to Cincinnati beyond the Burrow effect?
Beyond the Burrow effect?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what they're saying. Like, obviously, Burrow's a draw.
But do you think it's more the family business kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, so like, I'm gonna kind of detach the idea of, because you got me thinking about two different scenarios. I'm gonna kind of detach the scenario of it being the Brown family, because I feel like that's a slippery slope in itself.
Oh yeah,
it just says history as a fan. But I do say I will say that, and I think that we are now, for the most part, let's call it 2 solid years of the Burrow era. You can argue 3, fine, whatever. But throw in Taylor, of course, and I know that's what we're not talking about Burrow, but if you look at not only the wins getting the attention and the postseason runs getting the attention, yes, I think the vibe, not only they were broadcasting that left and right, especially in 2021. but who was
Mhm.
listening? They weren't winning, at least not early on. And I think now, after 2 years of that, of the winning and them repeating the same mantra, there's a uniformity in what they say. It's not like it's just people, you get that stuff all the time, like, oh, we're a family here, whatever. But
Right.
there's a certain genuine excitement to it. I think it's very honest and it's obvious and it's believable, right? I think that everyone's aware of it at this point. And when I say everyone, I think that like maybe
Sorry,
even
my
if a
wife was
player's
trying to
not,
say something.
no, you're fine. I think even if a player's not, because they're just grinding, they're doing their work, their job at another team or whatever, like their agents are. I think it's gotten to that point.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think there is a draw there. I think there
Mhm.
like oh, a contender and everyone seems to love going into work. Like that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and like even if they haven't done the updates, and I think that all that stuff, like do you think the players really pay attention to that, where they did the Twitter poll or whatever it was, the
Oh,
NFLPA poll, where the
I-
Bengals were like dead last or close to it on
is,
updates and stuff like that?
do they pay attention to the things that they were asked about in that survey, or do they pay attention to
Yes.
the results of the survey?
Well, kind of. I guess both.
Yeah. I think I think it's like anything, right? Like think about it like where you work, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's just if there's that one thing that like you just wish you had around that you feel like would be a common sense thing, it'll probably bother you a bit. And especially if it doesn't get addressed.
$1.75 for a damn candy bar.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like I
Yeah.
don't know. We like in my job, we used to have parking paid for at the time
Mhm.
we were downtown, and then when they took that away, everyone went insane, which I get, but it was only a matter of time. And but it's even smaller than that. I feel like if you speaking relative to the survey, at the end of the day, I don't know why. I think it was great off-season news, but it just sucked that it happened during the combine. I felt like it was the perfect. I was telling James, it's like this is like the perfect thing to come out like a week
In the
after the
dead
Super
space.
Bowl or 2 weeks after. You know what I mean? Like not the
Yeah.
combine.
Mhm.
But it was kind of an odd timing thing. We probably would have even mentioned it on Cincinnati Bengals Talk if it had been a little bit in between things. I think, in my opinion, I barely paid attention to any sort of, I don't know. There was not even a hint of outrage on my part. I could tell you that only because we had heard worse and players had left over worse in the past, or
Mhm.
maybe even left over less in the past. And the things that they listed, at least that the Bengals got dinged for, and I'm going to have to go off of memory here, but there's something about vitamins. There was one thing about
Yeah.
not serving, the cafeteria wasn't open on a Tuesday or whatever it was.
Yeah. On
And I think
the
one,
players off day or whatever.
yeah, and there was one that seemed somewhat legitimate. It was something about an environment for like families to,
Oh, yeah. I think
uh,
like, and that's like, is that the nursing? Was that the nursing area?
it
They
might have
don't
been
have
that.
somewhere for either for women to nurse, or they don't have an area designated for the children. I don't
Yeah.
know
And
exactly what they meant by that, but yeah.
yeah, it's like, don't get me wrong, and not to belittle it. That's important stuff. I can see where someone would value each and every one of those things.
Mhm.
I guess where I'm coming from with is like none of those things to me were like, oh, how are they going to overcome this? The Bengals, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
how's any NFL club going to figure out what to do with this? Like that's going to be a big investment. Like no, it was all stuff that I felt like, okay, it's silly that you're not doing that for these people, but they called you out. You got the feedback. We may never hear about it again because it'll just get taken care of and it'll be fine.
Yeah. And I did see where did I see that read that correctly, where they are actually in the process of updating the locker rooms and stuff like that? Like
They
they don't have
are.
the metal tubs anymore for the spas,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
like,
yeah. The
doing
training
stuff like that.
area
Yeah.
or locker room, yeah, facility. They did just say something about that. I didn't really read up on it.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the pictures, honestly. That's what I wait for anime. I just want to see it.
Maybe to be ready when they do their tours or whatever
Yeah.
for season ticket holders or whatever.
Oh, maybe. That'd be nice. But yeah, that's what they were saying here. They didn't have not having dinners after the game where players can sit and eat with their family. And actually, that's one thing. Has nothing to do with the Bengals, but can the Banks, for the love, please, on Bengals night games, don't close at midnight or 1 o'clock or whatever it was, because I still remember going to what's the name of the place that has all these like 250 beers on tap.
At the Banks?
It's killing me. At the Banks, I'm trying to think of right now. Yard House.
Yard House.
Yeah, Yard House. We tried to get in there after a night game, and like they was closing in 45 minutes. And it's like, man, can they work on something where like after a game they stay open till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning? But
yeah, maybe who knows? I don't know the timing, but I wonder if that was a help issue too. I don't know.
It could have been, yeah. But yeah, that's my issue with the Banks, not with the Bengals.
Say, I thought you were going to say, and maybe this is me projecting, but I thought you were going to say with the Banks is like, can we find a way to offer more restrooms for people like before the game?
Yeah, that's
insane.
True too. Oh, it's crazy waiting in those lines at whether you're lot 1, lot E, it don't matter. You're always waiting in line to go. But like, I'm going to take care of that next year. I'm going to just bring a bathroom myself, you know.
That's kind of the way people were going with it. The whole like tent over the drain thing or whatever they got going on. And
exactly. The porta potties or what, not the porta potties. What do they call those?
I don't know what they call them actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what they're called. The buckets. That's what it is. But
yeah,
but yeah, they're talking about didn't offer supplements for players, which, you know, if they got to approve them, why don't they do that? That I don't know. And it's kind of hard because you've got, let's see, at the start of training camp, what, 90, how many players at the start of 90-something at the start of training camp? And all of these guys don't like the same supplements. So it's like, so you're going to have to, if you're going to have all that on hand, there's literally going to have to be a GFS in Paycor Stadium so they know what they want.
Yeah. Or could you almost treat it like a, that was like I don't know why the first word that came into my head was like commissary. That makes no sense. Like I was just thinking like prison or something. But I'm like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Couldn't you have a scenario though where like, I mean, yeah, you're right. Campus work is a little bit tricky. And I don't know the time. I didn't read the details on that. I don't know if they complained about it like across the board or if it was more like once it's down to 53. But yeah, I feel like if how many people are asking for anything out of the ordinary as far as supplements, like how much variation, you might be right. Maybe it's a bunch. But like once you get down to the 53, like having on stock, I mean, if that's, look, I don't know. If other teams are doing it though, and that's again,
true.
Fixable. I feel like if that's the worst of your problems or relatively amongst the worst of your problems as far as the survey is concerned, fixable. Like you hire some person, I mean, maybe not a person straight out of college, but you hire somebody to at least just kind of, you know, make sure that inventory's in place, and that's it. We're fine. You know, I don't know.
Exactly. Who wants to sell the supplement? What is it? The guys that sell the supplements out of their duffel bags, like just hire one of those guys to walk through there and be like, I got what you need.
Yeah, exactly.
It might be a little sketchy, but you know, maybe they can figure something out.
Yeah, make one of the supplements a sponsor, and then you've just got their entire, you know, annual hourly salary rate. Like you're probably paid for it. There you go. Whoever you hire to do it.
Exactly. Now, Crypt Keeper has a real question for once. Not that any of his previous questions weren't real, but want to know if you would go to a natural grass field again for Paycor.
I that's one of those things where I go by what the players are saying, right? I'm not out there, obviously. I don't. If the impression I'm getting is that whether there's complaints about it, whether it's causing an embarrassingly large amount of injuries or what have you with artificial turf at any level, hybrid or otherwise, like, okay, then, you know, if players prefer the natural grass, and yeah, I'm all for. Now that has its own shortcomings as well. If it's not maintained properly.
So it'll end up brown at the end of the year. Like I think that's how it is over in Baltimore, if I remember correctly, or at least their practice field, I know is always brown by the end of the year.
You got those giant divots during the game, like that whole thing with, like, remember, like, was it San Francisco had big issue with it? I mean, you saw several times this year. Yeah, I'd be curious to see, because I haven't really like read up on it a ton. I just kind of see some of the headlines when things go south with certain games, or things are, getting national attention because a player gets hurt or players are complaining that they could get hurt. I'd be curious to see like who's doing it right and what are they doing as far as like natural, like show like what's the sort of best practice in that world. Because I don't know that anyone's ever like laid it out that I've come across. I'm sure it's out there, but I'd be interested in reading about it. Like if it's that obvious,
Yeah,
like,
just
what are we
make
doing?
it uniform across the board.
Right.
That's because I think that's where, my personal opinion, I think that's where most of the injuries are lying, is because they're going 1 week they're on grass and on the practice field, then they're playing in a game that's turf, and then the following week they're going to a different style turf. And I think that could be why all these guys are getting these injuries, except for Washington, because you're always getting injured in Washington.
Stephen Turner there, toss up his commentary there. Yeah, right. So natural grass having events at the same. I get that.
Yep.
And I shouldn't. I'm careful how I say this, because I do feel like they've done better as of late. But like there was a very long period of time where
nothing
they were not
happened.
utilizing at the time Paul Brown Stadium for anything else. So what does it matter?
Exactly. Yep.
But yeah, I agree. I can't even imagine. And again, that goes back to who are there stadiums out there today with natural turf that are also doing concerts, and how are they doing it? Because I could see that would be pretty terrible with like natural turf, where it's like, dude, the amount of drinks and like bodily fluids that would be hitting that.
Oh, it'd be terrible. That would be terrible. I forget where it was, but there was somebody. It was in Mexico. They were supposed to have a game in Mexico several years back. Not the Bengals. I can't remember who was playing, but they ended up having to have it somewhere else because they just had a Madonna concert like the night or the week before, and it just destroyed the field. And they're like, "Yeah, we can't play on this."
Yeah, I mean, if you don't let them on the field, I guess it's possible. You just have the performer out there, but even then, it's like, depending on the way the stadium's laid out, and that's tricky. I mean, it's a good point. But look, I think I don't know the financials. I don't know what the Brown family values as far as like having the opportunity to hold concerts there. Is there a benefit to having natural grass and just saying we're going to be pretty selective on what we end up putting out here as far as, okay, so we don't do concerts, or if we did, how would that look? I mean, we got a venue right next door. I get that it's not going to be like a arena size, but that's a tough one. I don't know.
No, Will, or I call him Will. I don't know if that's Will Levis or not, but or Lewis, but he's wanting to know the thought of collusion between the owners and Lamar getting a new contract with guaranteed money. I mean, my personal opinion, I don't think this is run like The Godfather in the NFL, but maybe a little bit. So, but yeah, what's your thoughts on Lamar's contract and all that stuff?
Yeah, I kind of tend to, I think there's a valid, there are some red flags being thrown up that people are pointing at, and I get it. I'm kind of the same way. Like it's not that I don't want to think it's like tinfoil hat, but like, for lack of a better way of putting it, I'm not quick to go. If anything, it's a knock on me. Like I'm pretty like gullible. I'm pretty like, oh yeah, whatever they say is probably how it is. Like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna go live my life. And I don't probably question things maybe as much as I should. Let's put it that way. So but I will say that it's interesting. It's I don't know what's really going on there. I do think we're obviously not being told the whole story. I don't think that there is this massive agreement. Everyone's huddling around in a bunker deciding that they're going to do everything they can to ensure Lamar Jackson does not go on any other team. Otherwise, there would be some, secret handshake agreement around the league that would be completely, ruined. And I don't think that. Maybe some parallel thinking that is across different clubs that's causing this. Maybe, for all I know, and I don't know, maybe Lamar, his agent, the whole situation is just a big headache. I don't know.
Well, Lamar's his own agent too. So.
Oh, that's right. Of course.
So that throws another wrinkle into the whole situation. Like,
I'm all for players like I don't even know the whole story with that. I forgot all about that. You're right. that's like, it just reminds me of, and probably the worst. This is probably gonna be the worst analogy, but I love analogy. To me, that makes me think of people like, yeah, I'm gonna, and I don't get me wrong, there are plenty of things wrong with agents that
Mhm.
I think they deserve a little bit of criticism once in a while. But
David Mulligan.
yeah, exactly.
Oh gosh.
But to me, it's
And-
almost like you could like, that's like going like, I'm gonna represent myself in trial. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, oh, good luck, buddy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
like you do you. Best of
Yeah,
luck.
we've seen that work a lot, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just personally like, especially when you're about to get a ridiculous contract, because he will eventually get a good contract. Will it all be guaranteed? No, but he will get paid. And to say, oh, well, I want to represent myself because I want to get all of that money, like, come on, like, we're talking, even if it's only a 4-year deal, we're talking what, $300 million, and
Yeah.
like, you'll be fine.
I think that the truth of the matter, the reality of the matter is somewhere in between both sides. Like it tends to be with many things. I think there's a
Mhm.
certain level of Lamar, and according to this comment here, maybe his mom too,
Oh,
or his
maybe.
agent,
Yep.
and them playing, being very, I'm putting my foot down. This is exactly what I want. Take it or leave it type attitude. And I think there's probably a level from an owner, honestly, a business side of things, where they're like, yeah, we've been through this before, or this is completely unprecedented, but we don't play around with this kind of
Mhm.
demands. So you go ahead. It's that same mentality of like, that we just talked about Eli Apple earlier. It's the same
Mhm.
strategy. Go ahead, see what else you can get out there, and then
Yeah.
come back and let's have a real conversation.
Yeah.
And maybe maybe it's somewhere in between those two sides. But I don't know. I see the outrage at times,
Mhm.
like on social media, and I just maybe I haven't read up on it enough. But from what I have seen, to me it just sounds like everyone's just trying to figure out their business. And I think, like you said, he's not going to be. This is going to be one of those scenarios where like everyone's going to be like, Lamar was done dirty, and dude's still not on a team 6 years from now. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. We're not going to have another. Who is the one quarterback that everybody's still saying is a top 32 quarterback in the NFL right now?
Yep.
I can't think of his name, but that. But this could be something that has to do with it. Pork chop in the chat saying maybe nobody wants to pay, because it does seem like he wants all that guaranteed money.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to pay a lot of guaranteed money to a quarterback who's missed 10 games the last 2 years.
But meanwhile, you're Lamar Jackson and you're looking around, and I get it. I'd probably handle things a bit differently if it were me, but what does that matter? But if you're Lamar Jackson, you're probably looking at it and you're like, look what Deshaun Watson just got. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
he's been hurt. He wasn't playing at all for a year for non-injury reasons. And
Yeah,
I
Colin
think
Kaepernick, that's that one.
I think there's a level of like, look, if somebody at some point, it's either going to continue this trend of these ridiculous offers for quarterbacks, or these next few years are going to prove that Watson was the exception. And I think
Mhm.
Lamar is in an interesting position to be one of those people that is going, am I going to be the person that proves that this is the reality of things? Or am I going to be the person to start the trend of saying, yeah, that was messed up, wasn't it? Like, no one's going to do that anytime soon. And that was the exception. And look what Lamar Jackson did. Like, he's in an interesting spot. Burrow is too, for that matter, let's just say.
Yep,
But yeah,
Burrow is too, yeah.
But
And
hopefully I would think a little bit less drama in terms of reactions and discussion.
Do you think enough of quarterbacks have been, or how many I guess I'll say this, how many quarterbacks do you think it'll take before we get away from quarterbacks wanting a fully guaranteed contract? I mean, how many do you think we got to get Burrow, we got to get Mahomes, or not Mahomes, but we got to get the Chargers quarterback? Herbert. Gosh, I kept wanting to say Bortles. I don't know why I have Bortles on the brain, but do we need to get all of these guys before that looks like an outlier?
I mean, I can't say this for the Cleveland Browns. They may always be stuck with being expected to pay a fully guaranteed contract. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's true.
Look, I don't know who necessarily either you could say breaks a trend or starts the real trend here. I don't. If anybody is going to set an example, Burrow's done that his entire career, and I think the conditions in Cincinnati, I think the conditions with the culture of this Bengals team, the relationship he has, and it's to his loyalty really to I don't know. Burrow's just so different. If anything, if this Watson thing had never happened, I feel like Burrow would be the example. He's almost like the other end of that spectrum where it's like Burrow's contract is the extension or exception because Joe Burrow does things a bit differently, and he's willing to bend here and demand certain other things there. But I think that will be the, I don't know. If assuming Lamar doesn't happen sooner, I think that's where conversation starts happening with, like, look how these extensions could work with this sort of, this can't miss prospect that got drafted at quarterback. He's going to set a certain. I think owners are going to love the Burrow deal, like other team owners. I think they will, and I think it's going to be fair for both sides. In our case, I don't know how it works out for everybody else in the long run, but owners are going to love that the Burrow deal happens the way that it will, especially after Deshaun Watson.
I think the same thing, and that's one thing I was going to finish off with was the Burrow contract, and like, when do you think this gets done? Obviously, I say, do you think it gets done before free agency? We're getting dangerously close here. But let me just ask you this: do you think, if you had to put a bet before free agency, before the draft, or in June, like they always do with the contracts, where closer to which one of those dates do you think?
For Burrow?
For Burrow.
Well, so I'm probably one of the least qualified people when it comes to understanding how, when we start getting into the real, like, detailed financials, there's a whole thing with this escrow, and my understanding is there's this March 31st date, right? Is this sort of transition? Like, I think it's at least going to be after that, based on what I've read and everything. Now,
saying the same
you bring
thing
up a good point with June, though. The real question is, like, what? It's the whole point of all this, I guess, when we talk about free agency, is like, I think that whatever they do with Burrow is, especially for 2023, in terms of how it impacts their cap and their plans for current players and anybody else they bring on board, as far as free agency is concerned, I think whatever they do with Burrow is not going to move the needle a ton for them and really, stretch them thin, so to speak.
For this year.
Right. But at the same time, it's almost like it's the almost amongst, like, the highest of priority, but doing it at the right time is also going to be key. I could see it happening in June. I think they would love to have it agreed upon earlier than that, and so they can just kind of start stacking everything up, even prior to the draft. What do I think is going to happen, though? Man, I think if everyone got their way, it'll be done in April. I think there's going to probably be some more discussion that's going to have to happen. I could see it being some June news. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
If I had a bet on it, I might be on the back end
of training camp and getting ready to start all that stuff. Yeah.
But never sweating it, never thinking it's not going to get. It's not. This isn't like a situation like Jesse Bates last year, where everyone's asking all these questions and what's going on. And no, I'm not going to be worried once, to be honest. Like, and that's, could you imagine if it didn't? Like, I'm not putting this out in the world, but if it didn't, like, that would be, like, I don't know. I might, Cincinnati Bengals talk might go dark if that happened. You know what I mean? Like, it would just be.
And the crazy part is like, they don't even need to do it this year, but still, if they didn't, I think Bengals fans would lose their ever-loving minds.
Yeah. While still knowing that he's probably still going to be around, right?
Yeah.
But
exactly.
But yeah, I think there's too much. It's not even just securing Burrow. Like, obviously that's the whole point of it. But I think it's also, it goes back to setting the message out to current players and future prospective players would say, like, this is what we are. And, offensively, this is our core out on that field. and he's not going anywhere. You want that, like Duke Tobin, like right now, of everything that he's thinking out ahead of time in his mind, like Burrow is he's part of that plan and everything else that he's thinking about in advance. So if you're thinking that way, it needs to be that way. And yeah, I think I can't imagine what it would be to cause a delay. And I know a lot of it has just been, I mean, coaches have said it, and Mike Brown would say it too, like that's priority for us. But
yeah,
they got to do it. Yeah.
I think we all know that they're literally currently drawing it up as we speak. Well, maybe not this late at night, but they're working on it. So it's just minor details and stuff like that. But you definitely want to get it done before Hurts, before Herbert, before Tua, before like any of the other quarterbacks that are top tier get their payment. But I know I said that was one last question, but I do have one more question for you, real quick, right off the top of your head. Does Lamar go anywhere else, or does he play in the AFC North next year?
In the AFC North?
Yes.
So for the Ravens, like, right?
I don't see him going to the Steelers or anything like that. But.
Yeah. Man, it's almost a question of like, would he play for the Ravens?
Yeah.
Like, is he?
Oh, would he play? Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? Like, there's that too. Yeah. But okay, at the end of the day, like, what roster is he assigned to?
Yeah, exactly.
Look, in my mind, my gut reaction is he's going elsewhere. But that's usually the way I think when it comes to a situation where there's just too much friction. There's too much
animosity, too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so weird to think that way for the Ravens, and even I don't want to say the Steelers, but to a certain degree, like, because you look at it like especially you talk like being a Bengals fan, like it just always seemed like they had their shit together, right? Like you looked at those other teams, like, man, like there's a level of respect from certain players, Antonio Brown being the exception, but like there's a certain level of respect that's being given to the coaching staff, to the ownership, the front office, and
so
you always look at it as like
when they drafted people, you would say, "Oh, he's definitely a Steeler," or "Oh, he looks like a Raven," or that
right.
Kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's that, right? Yeah. And I don't know that Lamar Jackson fits the mold of like, oh, he looks like a Raven, but I just feel like I couldn't fathom a scenario where it almost feels like there's a bit of like it's beyond business. There's a little bit of bad blood that's gonna have to be sorted out. They gotta, and I don't know what's going on over there. I really don't. Like, I don't know if maybe it is Lamar Jackson. Maybe we've just cracked it.
It could be, yeah.
Maybe it's Lamar Jackson. Because I don't know. Like, what's the precedent here? Like, who's had this issue in the last 10 years at this scale? A player of this caliber that's that important to this team
that doesn't want to be there. It seems like.
Yeah.
Kyler. I mean, seems like Kyler didn't want to be until he saw that big paycheck. But
I'm talking about the AFC North. Well, no, I'm not talking about Cleveland. I'm talking about the old days of Big Brother. Like, you look around, like who in the last 10, 15 years, I don't know. I mean, there's been some, don't get me wrong. Like, I mentioned Antonio Brown. I know Juju had some issues and whatever, but like, I get all that, but I don't know. I don't think the Ravens are the type of team to force a player on to keep a player with them that doesn't want to be there. Yeah. I don't know how it ends, but I don't see him unless something that I don't know behind closed doors. Like, I don't know if he just kind of comes to and they have a little retreat together and they sort their shit out. Like, maybe that happens, but currently I just don't see how. It just seems way too messy.
There
Jets.
You go. Saying Rodgers isn't going to end up going, and then they're going to end up flipping for Lamar.
Here you go. You want an exclusive? It's nothing that exciting. You brought up Jets and Rodgers. Hang on. I'll
all right.
Pull this down.
Let's see what we got here.
All right.
Yeah, Carson was one. Yeah.
I don't broadcast this on Twitter. I don't talk about this on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. But here you go. Check this out.
Oh,
that's a owner certificate with my Andrew Fox Miller on it.
Nice.
Of the Packers. I never talk about it ever since we started doing YouTube, but that's kind of my dual fandom growing up.
I was going to say, so you were a cheesehead then.
Yeah, I've got a cheesehead, but it's up in the closet in my room. I don't in this house I can't talk about it anymore. But no, it's my dad's family all originally from Wisconsin. So as a kid growing up, it was like I couldn't watch a lot of Packers games unless it was prime time. But like to me, like you associated football as a kid, and like that was Packers. That's just what to me. And then you start going to school and you see other kids wearing, if they weren't wearing Cowboys or 49ers starter jackets, you're like, oh, I should probably watch some Bengals games. And then I kind of caught on. And of course, like being local and going to games, been way more involved with Bengals. But like talking about Aaron Rodgers and Jets, like I pay attention to all that stuff too. I'm just I've been to Lambeau a couple times, and yeah,
that's one. One at the top of my list is going to Lambeau.
You will love it. I honestly think nowadays everyone would love it going, but I think I loved it even more the first time I went. Like it's over 10 years ago now. The first time. Because it was the Bengals over 10 years. You walk around, you see how like they run a facility and like, they had their Hall of Fame. You're like, what? And it's still impressive. Don't get me wrong, but things were pretty rough when I went as a Bengals fan. And but yeah, no, it's like if you're a baseball fan, obviously, like if you went to Wrigley, or if you went to Fenway, like it's just that you kind of feel like you're on, it just feels like just important when you're there.
Yeah. A little bit of like the holy grail of football. Sprinkled a little holy water on that ground.
And you'll never you won't find a more accommodating fan base. It is so cool to go. Like it's like going to a college football game. You're just walking down the street and it's just like these Cape Cod houses as you're walking down, and then boom, there's a stadium. And on your way, there's people just drinking in their driveway, and they're like letting people park there for like $15 if you want. Right. But you can also use their bathroom, grab whatever you want out of their cooler if you want to cook something off their fridge. Like it's such a wild. It's really cool.
Crazy.
So
I remember when we played Green Bay last year, like tailgating with those guys was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun fan base. Now they face each other in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that might be a little crazy.
The last 2 years, I kept thinking this is very as they get in the playoff. I'm like I don't. Of course, Packers didn't make it this year, but I sat there thinking like, man, this is gonna be one of those weird scenarios where all of a sudden they get in, like they kind of back their way in, and they just make this crazy run. I don't know if I can handle them playing it. I don't know if it'd be the best game ever or the worst as far as like circumstance, like just growing up and watching both teams. But yeah.
Well, Andrew, there was one question about Bearcats, and I had to get that in there. Yeah. Do you see him having a down year or surprise?
I hate when there's coaching changes. I don't know what to make of what they're going to do. Like what the consistent thing is going to be there. I think they're going to be fine. I think that they're going to.
Now,
I've tried not to think about it, to be honest.
Is that this coming year, or is that the following year? That they're going into the other division.
It's not this coming, is it?
I cannot remember.
Comment on that one here. Mine, the Packers 50 years. Oh, hell no. I thought about it, and even like 10 years ago, that seemed ridiculous to me. Because besides, like, what am I going to do? Like, I would just end up selling the tickets. Like, I wouldn't be able to make every game.
Yeah.
My wife would nenever move to Green Bay. She's going to go warmer before she goes colder.
I've been trying to talk Sarah into like, I'm like, hey, so because she finishes her bachelor's in April. Yeah. And then she's going for her master's program. I'm like, hey, if you get this master's, we can live pretty much anywhere we want. I'm like, Florida's awful warm. And she's like, no, I don't want to move. I'm like, all right.
my wife would go Florida in a heartbeat. I love seasonal weather. I just got a soft spot for it. I like beaches and all, but then I get burned out. I'm like, man, I'm ready for some change up.
I'm the same way. Like, and it's just a matter of like, because we're leaving in June to go on a cruise. So I'm starting to already get that like beach vibes.
Yeah.
Want to be there already. So I'm like, hey, let's just move to somewhere where there's sand and that water. And
Yeah. June beach weathers. What, did you say Florida? Or a cruise,
Yeah.
you said?
Yeah, for the cruise. It'll be, so we're going to the Bahamas. It'll probably be a little warm, but we went on a cruise in April. Or no, we went to Mexico no, it wasn't April. When was that? In August. We went to Mexico in August, and that was one of the worst. Oh, I remember stepping off the plane in Florida, and it was just like, take your breath away.
Humidity?
The humidity, exactly.
It's terrible. If I were to move anywhere, it would be less humidity. I don't care if it's warmer or colder, but summers here aren't the best. But I'd still take this over the humidity in Florida, which basically the hottest summers here don't last that long. Yeah, Big 12. Big 12 is
Big 12.
July. So yeah, it'll be this year.
Okay. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see kind of how
there's so many variables happening on that team right now.
Yeah,
like
I know.
I don't know. I feel like it's almost like I'm going to go into this year like, okay, like I'm just going to look at it as like, well, this is new Big 12 team, UC Bearcats. See how they do. Like I have to. I don't even. Got my got my UC hat here and
yep,
a little bit of a
nice retired blue microphone in the background. I see that back there.
Yeah. I should sell that. I was one of those things I told my wife, I was like, oh, I'm getting a new microphone. It was Black Friday day. I was like, because I'll sell the other one and it'll offset a bit of the costs. And then I just use it as like a bookend. Like it's holding books up.
Exactly.
Like I should, but I also thought like, okay, if I had like, if James came here, he'd jump on a mic, but then like we never do it that way. For some reason, he always wants to share a mic, which is weird, but.
Yep, and that's how the infamous mic drop happened.
Oh yeah,
the muted mic happened.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's right, and that's how I get mine's bourbon.
Beautiful, yep, beautiful bottle of bourbon.
Yeah,
but yeah, Andrew, thanks for coming on again. We really appreciate it. Sorry the other guys flaked out on you. I don't know.
Yeah, like
what happened to them. They're like,
apologizing for them. I'm
stuff.
Sorry you have to apologize for them. They need to come and apologize to me, I think.
Hey, I'll make sure they do that firsthand. I'll have them send you a personalized video.
I'm going to do a whole series where people are buying me bourbon because they owe me something. So episode 2 is Dale, me and Dale, wandering. It won't even be Party Source. I'll make it even
Let's
more
just go to, we'll just send him to Newport, the Newport Kroger's, whatever it's.
Oh yeah,
bar there.
I've been in some liquor stores that they wouldn't let you film there because odds are you're probably catching a crime happening. But I would go there to film that. I would sacrifice.
Hey, next time you see him, just ask him about the Target out in Newport, and I'll just leave it at that.
I've been to that Target many times, so I'm gonna ask him about it.
All right. Well, thanks again, Andrew. We appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate this having all this talking and not really much being said, but that's how I roll. But thanks again, and we'll end this with a Who Day.
Who Day.
Who Day, baby! Let's go! It's time! Cincinnati, we gon' rise and up. In the jungle, we united up. Trippin' orange and black and white. Who Day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Now who got 'em, who rockin' on? Now who wanna move crossing on? Now who wanna move out on? If you got stripes, then you let the city